Welcome to our continuing series, Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis. Today, the Psychic Being, Part 2. From Sri Aurobindo. Men do not know themselves and have not learned to distinguish the different parts of their being. For these are usually lumped together by them as mind, because it is through a mentalized perception and understanding that they know or feel them. Therefore they do not understand their own states and actions, or, if at all, then only on the surface. It is part of the foundation of yoga to become conscious of the great complexity of our nature, see the different forces that move it, and get over it a control of directing knowledge. We are composed of many parts, each of which contributes something to the total movement of our consciousness, our thought, will, sensation, feeling, action. But we do not see the origination or the course of these impulsions. We are aware only of their confused and pell-mell results on the surface, upon which we can, at best, impose nothing better than a precarious, shifting order. The remedy can only come from the parts of the being that are already turned towards the light. To call in the light of the divine consciousness from above, to bring the psychic being to the front and kindle a flame of aspiration which will awaken spiritually the outer mind and set on fire the vital being, is the way out. It all depends upon where the consciousness places itself and concentrates itself. If the consciousness places or concentrates itself within the ego, you are identified with the ego. If in the mind, it is identified with the mind and its activities, and so on. If the consciousness puts its stress outside, it is said to live in the external being and becomes oblivious of its inner mind and vital and inmost psychic. If it goes inside, puts its centralizing stress there, then it knows itself as the inner being, or, still deeper, as the psychic being. The psychic is a spark come from the divine, which is there in all things, and as the individual evolves, it grows in him and manifests as the psychic being, the soul seeking always for the divine and the truth, and answering to the divine and the truth whenever and wherever it meets it. All contact with the divine, through the essential substance of the consciousness, is spiritual, and it is that consciousness in the essential substance, what is called the self, that is the spiritual consciousness. The soul or psychic being is a spark of the divine that grows and evolves through successive lives and leads the rest towards the divine. The spirit or self is the same always. The self feels always its unity with the divine, and is always the same. The soul is a portion of the divine that comes down into the evolution and evolves a psychic being, more and more developed through experiences of successive lives until it is ready for the divine realization here. The soul in evolution is only a power for the evolution. It contains everything in potentiality, but that can only be worked out by the psychic being. There is a difference between the psychic and the self. The self is the Atman above, which is one and all, remains always wide, free, pure, untouched by the action of life in its ignorance. Its nature is peace, freedom, light, wideness, ananda. The psychic Antaratma is the individual being which comes down into life and travels from birth to birth and feels the experiences and grows by them till it is able to join itself with the free Atman above. The psychic being is concealed in the depths behind the heart center. The self has no separate place. It is everywhere. Your self and the self of all beings is the same. Love, joy, and happiness come from the psychic. The self gives peace, or a universal ananda. The psychic being is the soul or spark of the divine, developing a form of itself in the evolution, which travels from life to life. The psychic is the soul in evolution. The Atman is the self above the evolution. The psychic being is the soul within that experiences life and develops with evolving mind and life and body. The psychic does not suffer like the vital or body. It has not pain or anguish or despair, but it has a psychic sorrow, which is different from these things. It has a kind of quiet, sweet sadness of yearning, which it feels when things go against the divine, when the obscurity and obstacles are too heavy, when the mind, vital and physical, follow after other things, when evil and falsehood and darkness seem to be too strong for the light. It does not despair, but feels that these things ought not to be, and the psychic yearning for it to be otherwise becomes so intense that it is felt as if something akin to sadness. As for the psychic being not being in front, that cannot be brought about all at once. The other parts of the being must be prepared for the change, and the veil between must become thinner and thinner. It is for that experiences come, and there is the working on the inner mind and vital and physical, as well as on the outer nature. But it is best for you not to speculate too much about these subtle things at present. You have not sufficient experience to grasp correctly the complexity of the truth. The one thing you are concerned with is that you have a soul, a psychic being, which stands for your center of existence, a part of the divine. Become aware of that, and put all your mental, vital, and physical nature in relation to it, in order that they may become purified, harmonized, divinized, and the supermental being and nature may descend and be manifested in you. For until this is done, the conscious linking and relation with the psychic center, there can be no supramental descent. Namaste.